Are you the type of seamstress that loves pockets on everything and you appreciate patterns that have pockets? Well, I tend to be the opposite. I try to ignore them. I really don't like to sew them unless they are specific, unless they're pretty. I'm looking for pretty, I'm not looking for function. I don't want to put things in there. I found a dress with amazing pockets. I'm going to show you how to sew them and how to sew this beautiful knit dress. Look at these slanted pockets. Keep watching. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. Yesterday I shared with you a make that is a little bit more involved, that it takes a little bit more of your time to make. Super satisfying. I love those projects. During my sewing week, which you might imagine is pretty intense running a sewing channel, I am sewing all types of sewing projects. Some are involved, some are intermediate, some are pretty beginner friendly, and I try to just mix them in there so I don't get too exhausted. I love having a really easy to sew project as well in there, to have a little rest, have a little breather. Also to bring you a huge variety of content and projects that can be achievable for your level of sewing. At whatever stage you are in your journey, we're all at different stages and we're all moving forward. And I want to encourage you in each of these stages. That's why you'll see some of my videos feature some advanced techniques, but it doesn't mean that you can't try to do them. There's always a day when it's your first time that you do something, and I love having this content for you to watch and come back to when you are ready. This specific dress is rated beginner friendly, which is awesome. I can certainly agree with that. Very beginner friendly, although when you look at it you might think it's harder to sew just because of the way it looks, but in actual fact it is extremely easy to sew. I'm talking about the Alana dress from Sinclair Patterns. It's a pattern that was released maybe a month or two ago. I had it on my radar. I liked it as soon as I saw it, and yeah, I made it up today, literally fresh off the machine. There is a big sale going on. As you know, it's Black Friday sales and a lot of indie pattern brands are having their sales. Sinclair also has their sale, and I got my pattern yesterday when the sale started. So all the patterns at Sinclair are 25% off through the 30th. I have shown already some videos about Sinclair patterns on my channel. If you want, you can see a playlist I will link down below. What I like most about them, and I think is pretty unique to other brands, is that they have files for your height. So there's a petite, a regular, and a tall separate file for you to sew. That will give you such a better result because you won't need to be worried about if the arms are too long, you know, the bodice lengths. All those things are sort of customizable for those heights. So whenever I've sewn my tall files, it's awesome because I know they're going to fit, and I don't need to be thinking, oh, but I'm taller, I need to use the lengthen and shorten line, that sort of thing. I don't have to worry about that. I think if you're petite, you would appreciate this too, that you don't have to be chopping everything up because everything's too long, you know? So I think that's my favorite feature. The sizing is really inclusive. Some of the patterns have bust cup sizes, which is also awesome. You are very welcome to use my affiliate link if you want to. I gain a little commission from those sales, and that helps support me, what I do in this channel. If after watching the video you really like the dress and want to make it for yourself, I would be very grateful if you used my link. So the Alana dress is a knit dress. They classify it at 3 out of 10 in the difficulty level, which means it's very beginner friendly. It's designed for knit fabrics. It's very easy to sew, although it does have a few pattern pieces. It doesn't have like 2 pattern pieces. There are quite a lot of pattern pieces, but it doesn't mean that it's hard to sew. Most of the seams you're going to be doing on this dress are just really straight, long seams, really. There's no aspect of the construction that is complex at all. As you can see on the liner there, you have 2 options for the neckline. One is a little higher and then you have a deeper scoop. There are princess seams that originate from the shoulder, front and back. These are my favorite types of princess seams. I think they're always easier to fit. Depending on your bust size, it's easier to fit the curve in a longer area like this, rather than when it comes from the armhole where it's a short curve. It's just harder to sew and get a really smooth result when the curve is pronounced because you have a larger bust. Maybe you can't tell there, but it's designed to be fitted at the bust. You have a little... It's designed to be fitted at the bust, semi-fitted at the waist, and then very roomy at the hips because you have all those panels that will create a lovely, lovely silhouette there at the bottom of the skirt. You can choose it to be above the knee or sort of below the knee, those 2 lengths. And the most important feature that I love are those pockets. I mentioned in the introduction that I usually see something with pockets and I'm like, nah, no, are they optional? I'm not going to do them. And actually they are optional in this dress. You can opt out of the pocket and just sew the side panel here regularly without the pocket there. But I think the pocket is really cleverly designed and it's really fun to sew. It looks really good on. So I decided from the get-go that I was actually going to sew this pocket, enjoy sewing it and enjoy wearing it. For the sleeves, there is a cut line there for a sleeveless option if you want, and then you have short, 3/4 and long length. So, you know, this dress could be yours for winter or for summer, whatever you want. As for the fabrics, you want light to medium weight knits that will stretch about 30% horizontally and vertically. The pattern classifies the fabric recommendations as first choice and second choice. That just means the second choice fabrics could work but not look the best. You want knits that have spandex or lycra content in there, whether it's cotton, rayon, modal, bamboo, those types of fabrics. Those types will actually drape really nicely as well. Then you can use ITY, single brush poly, double brush poly, French terry, rib knit. As for the second choice, they are the ones that are just a bit heavier, a bit more structured, like ponte double knits. They could work, but the volume of the skirt I think would stick out a little bit. I think for the shaping up here it would be fine, but I wouldn't choose that for this type of skirt that this dress has, although you might want to have that look and it would work. I specifically have not chosen any of the recommended fabrics because athletic knits are never recommended anywhere unless you're making activewear. Actually, other than rayon spandex, the only other knit materials I can find readily are athletic materials, Supplex. Supplex athletic wear and making athletic wear is super common here in Brazil. They actually make the fabrics here as well. I found amazing Supplex. It's an awesome type of medium weight knit that drapes amazingly, feels super soft on. It's got all that wicking property that you really like for active wear, but can also be a dress. So I've chosen that type of fabric for mine. The size range is really good, from 0 to 30 US. The upper measurements include a bust of 60 inches and a hip of 63 inches. At size 0, the pattern is drafted with a B/C cup size, and as the sizes get progressively larger, you end up with an E bust cup size. The size I've chosen, 16, has a CD cup size, which is perfect for me. It fits me well, and I've done it before with some of the other patterns and had amazing results. As I mentioned, you have a petite, a regular, and a tall separate file. So first you need to know how tall you are. You choose that file, and from there you choose your size, and then you make your dress. It's so relaxing and reassuring to have that confidence that you're going to choose a size, you're going to sew it, and it's going to fit. And that's basically been my experience with Sinclair patterns. Now, the only thing is I wish they had more woven patterns because I usually like the woven patterns more. About the fit, I mentioned that this was a fitted bust. You have a little bit of negative ease at the bust, 1.5 inches smaller than your bust, but that's why you have the stretchy fabric, and that's what's going to make this neckline fall flat against your chest and fit really well. For a dress to look nice in a knit, you need to have that little bit of negative ease at the bust. Then at the waist, it's semi-fitted. Here you'll have positive ease, 3 inches positive ease. And then at the hips, you know, the skirt is flared out with those panels. You have plenty, about 10 to 12 inches at the hips. If you regularly need to sew one size and then go to the next size for the hips, you might get away with just sewing the straight size and not going up the size for your hips. Maybe, just because of the style. What you're going to see in Up Close and So Personal is one of my most favorite features ever. I think the design of the dress is genius. It's the way that the neckline is finished. It's not with a band, it's not with binding, it's with a facing. And I generally do not like facings on knit garments, but I like this one just because of the way it's finished and the way it's actually fixed onto the garment. So you are going to see in detail how the neckline is finished. It's extremely easy and looks amazing. The whole dress uses a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is really nice for knits. If you are sewing directly from your serger, you don't need to be trimming away things. In my case, my serger is only a 3-thread. I can't just sew with the serger and leave it. My seams will just start opening up and not looking very good because it's not for that. It just does not hold the seam. I do have to go to the sewing machine anyway and sew with a shallow zigzag, and I never regret doing it. I think my knit garments turn out really well, and I don't really feel a disadvantage really. So for those of you who have commented on my 3-thread serger, Don't feel sad for me because I am absolutely fine with it. And I really like the precision that the sewing machine gives you in comparison to what a serger can do for places where you need to intersect seams, you know. I just really like the sewing machine for that. So you'll see a lot of how to sew this dress. If you are new to sewing, you can get this amazing dress and it's just so easy to sew. Let's hop into there. This is the center front piece of the dress. It's cut on the fold and you have a facing that is exactly the same shape. This is the facing and this is the original length that the facing has, like that. So when you sew your dress and turn it right sides out, that's the length of the facing. But I would like my front facing to go at least to my waist or a little below that. So they are the same pattern piece. I just put more paper here and I just cut it longer basically. I've cut it 8 inches longer than the original length of the facing. I think I would like having a little bit more support in the front. And I was gonna do the same with the back, but then decided to just leave the back the same. So I can have a longer front and a shorter back, it won't affect anything. This is my back pattern piece and it's on the fold right there. And I want to cut a piece of interfacing that is going to follow the shape there instead of cutting a long strip and trying to mold it to this curve. You need to stabilize these necklines because they are going to have a facing, so it won't come together with a band or anything like that. And it does need to be knit interfacing, not woven interfacing. So if you grab this, it does stretch. I just put this on top there. I've got the interfacing on the fold too. And I'm just going to cut across there, and I'll probably cut it maybe 5/8 of an inch wide. Okay, so when I remove this, I have the shape here of the shoulder and the shape of the neckline there. This is then what I'm going to fuse onto the back neckline. You can see it takes the shape of the neckline. I'll do exactly the same thing with the front. The front is a deeper scoop, so I'll have a more pronounced shape, and I'll just fuse these on to the center back and the center front. This is how my center back piece looks. It's got that section that's interface, and that just gives a little bit more structure to this area and will prevent it from stretching too much, although it still stretches because it is knit interfacing. It'll be better than just having the neckline with nothing. The first option though is having clear elastic. That's how you would stabilize, but I don't have clear elastic, so I can't rely on that option. This is the second alternative that I'm using. This is the pattern piece for the front that goes on the side. You can see the armhole up there. And if you're gonna do the pocket, you need to separate this into 2 pieces. If you are not doing the pockets, then it's just 1 piece and then it's super easy. But I am actually going to do the pockets because I find them interesting. So there is a cut line there, and that cut line has a little notch in the middle, so I've just taken this apart, and I'm not going to use this piece at all. I'll just put this away and not use it. This little short piece here is the one that I'm going to cut in a contrast, or you can do it in the same fabric, it's up to you. I just want to cut this in a black. And then I have my main fabric, which is a print. The whole dress will have a print, but it'll be cool because just behind the pocket on the side you have a different color. So I'm not going to cut this piece out of my main, I'm going to cut it out of contrast. These are the main pieces for the dress. This is the center back that's cut on the fold and the side back, so those two will be joined together. Along these seams there are tons of notches to help you match everything up, so it's very easy to put together. This is the center front. You can see the black there on the necklines where I've already fused that interfacing. I've shown you how I've cut that. And this short piece is the side front that is going to be a contrast fabric. It's shorter because this will go attached to that top part of the pocket over there. This pocket is integrated into the rest of the side there. Very interesting to put together. I'm doing a short sleeve. This is my longer front facing that I have there on the fold, and that's the original back facing right there. This will be the pocket bag that will be integrated into this side. You can see I've marked a line right there. I need to cut a piece of interfacing that is a woven interfacing, not knit interfacing, and fuse that along there about 1 inch wide. That's just to stabilize the entrance of the pocket, because this is where you're going to put your hand in. So if you don't do anything there, it'll start stretching out and sagging over time. Where that line is drawn is actually going to be where it's folded, and it's going to be the pocket entrance. So I've cut a strip of interfacing about 1 inch wide, and as long as it needs to be. It's not stretchy, it's not knee interfacing. What you're seeing here is the front facing here and the back facing there. I've sewn them at the shoulder seams. It's a little seam allowance. The pattern uses only 1/4 inch for the whole thing. So I'm using my 1/4 inch foot to sew all these things. This edge at the bottom, I'm going to serge it, and that's the way the facing is going to be finished right there. I have also done the same with the main pieces of the dress, the front and the back. I always sew shoulder seams with a straight stitch. The shoulder seam is not a seam that needs to stretch on your body, so you don't need to do a zigzag stitch or anything. You actually want this to stretch less. Okay, so now that all the shoulder seams have been pressed, I'm going to flip the dress to have the right side facing up, and then I'm going to put the facing right on top. Align the shoulder seams, everything. I'll be using my 1/4 inch foot for everything. It's going to help me keep really neat seams. Okay, so depending on the weight of the fabric, what you do next with this neckline. If the fabric is super lightweight, it might not be possible to understitch. It won't work very well. If you have a rayon spandex or an ITY or something, at this point you might just need to snip into these curves. You know, you'll do that anyway for either method. This is Supplex. It's an athletic knit. It's not a lightweight knit, it's a medium weight knit. Still very drapey, that's why I've chosen it. So I'm going to go ahead and understitch this. I've got my facing touching my left hand, and the dress is on my right hand there. Seam allowance is pointing that way, and now I can understitch. This is the same thing you do with wovens, the exact same thing. If you weren't going to understitch, what you would do is flip the facing all the way to the inside, like that, press it, and then top stitch. That's the way that you would do it. Depending on your fabric choice, it's your decision basically. Okay, after sewing this, understitching, I flipped the facing towards the inside. You can see this is the facing because it's shorter. The original front facing would just be up to there. Mine is longer, just my choice. No band, no binding, it's just a facing inside. I really like this result. So what I'm gonna do just as an extra is hand baste this down to there, so it doesn't wiggle or get in the way. I'm just going to do a quick hand baste, hold all this together on these seams, because this is where we're going to sew the lateral pieces that go on the front and the back now. Okay, here are the lateral pieces for the front. They're only partial, they're shorter, I've already shown you that. My fabric is black, and on the wrong side I've scribbled with chalk everywhere so I don't get confused. So we have the right side of the fabric looking up. So take this piece with this weird shape looking down, put it right sides together with this. It should look like that. So you have that, and everything is pointing that way. Don't do it the other way because it's not going to work. It should look exactly like that. Have all the excess going off to the sides like that. And now we just need to sew this bottom here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. There, I'm going to go ahead and serge that. I've put a few pins there to signify that I've serged that. Just pretend it's been sewn. What happens afterwards is you bring this down. Right where that fold is, that's where the pocket needs to be folded, where the edge needs to meet, right there. And that's how we complete the lateral piece. Then we have to baste along the edges there to catch it all together. And then that's a completed side piece that can be sewn onto the center front piece. That's how when you are wearing your dress, you're going to put your hands in there, and the pocket bag will be behind there, tucked in there. That's how the pockets are done. I think it's super clever and super easy. To help you align this bottom piece, there is a notch there in the center that matches the one here. So it's really easy to align. I'm going to serge this, and that will be the end of it. I'm never going to put anything in my pocket. I don't really need it to be more sturdy than that. Now let's just start aligning this bottom to this side here. Just make it nice and neat. Put a few pins there, and then I'll just baste these edges together, and that will be one of the sides. Then this will all be caught within the side seam on one side and with the center front on the other side. So that's how that looks. You put your hand in there, and that's where the pocket stops, right there. And this will be basted here, basted there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then my lateral piece for the front is complete, and I can just work with it like one piece. These are complete. We've just done this. Now we have a tiny little shoulder seam there on the top. We need to align that with the lateral back piece. So I have those two here. Put the one that belongs there, right sides together with that one. Same as on the other side. We sew that tiny shoulder seam right there, and then we have a complete armhole that we can set our sleeves on flat. Okay, so I've sewn that tiny shoulder seam. I decided to serge the edges separately and have them open to avoid bulk there on the shoulders. I'm always trying to avoid bulk when I can, especially with knits. Then I've pinned the sleeve onto the armhole. There is only a notch on the front armhole that you need to match. There's none on the back, but it all matches perfectly. And there's a notch to match there on the shoulder seam as well. Sew and serge. Once the sleeves are on, then we can go ahead and attach the other piece, the front and the back, that is in a separate piece, and it's going to be one whole long seam there. These are the two center pieces. That's the front there, that's the back. We had already sewn the shoulder seams, the facing, flipped the facing, all that. I did baste this on the edge there so that this is all one piece. It won't move anywhere, so the facing is not going to be shifting around. And now I've placed this other long piece next to it. These two shoulder seams need to match there. And then we have to sew one continuous seam from one hem to the other. And that will unite the front on one side and the back on the other. So there's plenty of notches for you to match all along, and it'll be all good. I'm just going to pin, serge, take my time. And then this whole section will be one piece, including this facing there. Okay, so these humongous long seams have been sewn. I have the whole dress extended, and now all you need to do is take this, put it like that, and it's looking like a dress now. And now you can align the underarm here and all the way down to the hem in one go. So you can sew this and that's basically it with the dress. Then you just need to hem the sleeves and hem the bottom. Look what just fell from the tree. It's huge. It's the biggest mangoes ever, and they are just delicious. Enough with the mangoes. I have it in my hand. I'll eat it as soon as I finish filming. Let's hop back into the Alana dress. As I mentioned, sewing that side panel with the pocket insert was an option on this dress. If you don't want that, you can just sew it normally. But I wanted to show how that was done because it's super unique. I really enjoyed it. Here is the neckline, the deep scoop with the facing inside. It's so neat. Everything is understitched, so it works really well. I have tried to understitch knits that are harder to sew, that stretch a lot more when sewing, like rayon spandex. That doesn't work out really nicely, although I have done it. But you know, the pattern does give you the option of using clear elastic or fusing this with interfacing, which is what I did because it's what I have on hand. I don't have clear elastic, but I think that might give you a superior results if you do have that. It's really explaining the instructions how to do that. I can't demonstrate that for you because I don't have that notion. But that's fine, the interfacing works absolutely fine. And then to finish this, you could have just top stitched this down if your fabric was very light and stretchy. Or you could do the understitching, which is what I did because my Supplex is a medium weight knit and it could handle it perfectly fine and it's all good. When I flip this inside out, I'll show you that detail. I have short sleeves, so easy to sew. These seams were just they were just very long seams, very straight seams, nothing complex about it at all. This section here where you have the side panel and the center front meeting at the shoulder seam was the only section I had extra care to have it match. I didn't want to end up with that not matching. That's on both sides there. That's the other side right there. You can see that that matches perfectly. I actually hand basted that area first, like an inch just on that section there, because I didn't want the serger or the sewing machine to make it shift a little bit. But that's just me being perfectionist, you know. Can't help myself with that stuff. And the side panel, I chose black. Now this black is exactly the same fabric as my dress. It is Supplex. It's exactly the same type of material and weight. I suggest finding something, if you want to do contrast, that is sort of very similar to what you're using right here, so that it doesn't hang horribly and pucker and things. Sometimes if your fabric is too heavy and you're sewing it onto a light one, it just does not work very well. But this does, because it's the same fabric. Love these pockets. You can see, because I have the contrast fabric, you can see that shape there. I think it's so pretty, and you would think this is harder to sew when you look at the line art, but it's so easy. You saw how easy that was. And you saw that this section here was interfaced on the back, so we have a pocket that stretches nothing. It doesn't gape. It's not gonna start sagging when you put your hands inside or anything like that. Really like it. So well thought out, and all the notches match. And then you just have a long dress. I always just hem with my twin needle. Nothing special there. If you've watched how I sew, you know that I hand based my hems on knits before I put the twin needle through. I don't rely on those pins to keep it even. Takes 2 seconds to do, not hard, makes all the difference. Now you saw that I lengthened my front facing. I am very happy I did that because I love the result. I love how that feels on the front. It reaches my waist, and it doesn't make a difference to the sewing technique. It's just the same thing. It's just that the facing's longer. This is how it looks inside. So all this was facing, and it just reaches the waist. I have 2 layers there. I think that's awesome. And I contemplated on doing that on the back as well, but I would have had to use a contrast fabric for that after I cut out my sleeves. You know, I work with amounts of fabric that are just right or slightly less, so I don't have huge amounts of fabrics to play with. But I think the next time I make this dress, if I actually have the fabric, I will extend this to there as well to have a semi-lined bodice, which feels amazing and looks amazing. It just looks so much better. I can't recommend it enough. If you've never lined your knit dresses, if you do it once, you will be hooked, because the dress feels so amazing on, so supportive, feels heavier on the body, and it just prevents the bra lines from being seen, just the outline of the texture and all those things. Maybe you can see the understitching that was done to hold this facing inside. It is very doable, very good. You know, I love that the seam allowance is already 1/4 inch, because you don't have to be trimming away seam allowance at the neckline. You just sew it, you snip, you turn under. It's just good that it's already small. That's how that section looks there. So all in all, an easy to sew dress with a lot of pattern pieces, but that doesn't make it hard at all. It just requires you to sew a few extra long seams, which is not hard. And the dress on is amazing. When I put it on for the first time, yeah, I was just happy, because that's the feeling that you get when you put time into a project and it just all works out. There was no guesswork, for me at least, because I've sewn this brand. I know the toe file fits me. I just had a lot of confidence. Sewing in that way, when you know that the pattern was well made, well drafted, is amazing, because you don't have that little fear at the back of your head thinking, you know, is it going to be like I think it's going to be? Well, this one was just like I thought it was going to be. I've just put a pair of heels on. That's all. I don't really like style my outfits that much in my life or for the videos, because I just want to highlight the garment. So let's see it on. Here's my beautiful Alana dress with some heels. I am so happy with this dress. I knew it looked amazing in the liner and everything I saw, but as soon as I slipped it on, I felt amazing. So nice. This one is a little longer than what I would usually wear. It's mid-knee for me. This is a knee length version. There is a shorter one that should be above the knee, but I decided to make this one a little bit more formal this way. You can see the side panel here and the pockets. Nice roomy at the hip, semi-fitted at the waist. I've done short sleeves and the deeper scoop neckline. Really, really like it. I feel amazing in my heels in this dress. I'm a little off balance in my heels, but little twirl. A little up closer. The shape there is so nice. Pocket entrances are lower than your waist, and I like that, or else I would have to lift my hands to put them in. When I put my hands in the pockets, my hands, the length of my arms are correct for this pocket placement, and I really appreciate that on these pockets. This panel is highlighted because I chose a contrast fabric. I like that. I think it does show off the design, and I wanted to do that rather than just do it all in a print. That's how it looks at the back. There's something to be said about a dark panel on the sides for visual illusions. I think it's always a really nice look. Up closer you can see that the entrance of the pocket is slanted higher on the center of the body and lower at the sides. The section that I interfaced inside to stabilize it makes the pocket super sturdy there. It's not going to open up and start sagging down. It looks really good. I'll never put anything in these pockets, but they are pretty, and I sew pockets because they're pretty, not because they're functional. Up higher you can see my scoop neckline. I love this scoop neckline. I think it's so good. I'm always willing to change patterns, of course, to get what I want, but it's so much better if the pattern already has what I want. So I really like that. The princess seams come from the shoulders. These are my favorite types of princess seams. I like the visual effect that the dark panel gives on the side. The fit of the armhole with the sleeve is perfect, right at my shoulders. Just really good fit. You can see this neckline, it doesn't gape, it's perfect. It was stabilized before, it's not going to stretch out over time. Perfectly flat against my chest. I'm not showing cleavage. I'm just really good like this, super comfortable, and yeah, what can I say? Super happy with this dress. I would make it 10 more times for sure. I was just rummaging through my stash to see what other color combinations I can do, because I really like highlighting this feature. I think it's really pretty. Would look really pretty in a solid and another solid as well, I think. So yeah, totally recommend. Love this pattern. One thing to mention about this design in relation to how you're going to pair that with a knit that you might have, just be careful if the print has huge flowers or just big motifs on there. You want to leave those types of prints that have big bold motifs to designs that have less seam lines, like not princess seams or pockets or things that are going to cut into those features on the fabric. So that's just something I wanted to mention. I did think about it a lot. You can't really tell, the leaves are everywhere. So just think about the prints and the style when you want to match them together. It might be the perfect fabric type for the project, but sometimes the print might not be. So it's something else to think about when you sew. Thank you so much for watching. Have a look at Sinclair's website. Get the patterns you need for less. I really like them. I've always had great results, and I just need to sew more of them, you know. I really like it, so I'm very confident to recommend them and to put an affiliate link here. I wouldn't do that if I didn't really like what the pattern has to offer and what the brand has to offer. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.